How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Sports Weekly podcast from the Iowa State Daily. I'm Brett Twellmeyer. I'll be your host, and like always, I'll have my co-host introduce themselves.
What's up, guys? Assistant Sports Editor Pavel Markovic back with you.
Sports reporter Caden Storm.
Guys, Iowa State has officially done it. They're going to the Big 12 championship game.
Woo! After the Kansas game, who would have thought?
I know.
I didn't.
I didn't either.
We got all the breaks. Everything lined up perfectly.
Yep.
Somehow, some way, and they got in.
Everything went as it should that final weekend. All of the four teams in that four-team tie won. Iowa State, Arizona State, they get the tiebreakers, but Iowa State did it off of a 29-21 win against Kansas State. But before that, Iowa State went on the road against Utah. We didn't get to talk about that last time because of Thanksgiving break. Hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. We'll dive into this one really quick here. Iowa State 31, Utah 28. This was honestly probably the sloppiest win I've ever seen from Iowa State football. I mean, there were just way too many turnovers, way too many mistakes. I was shocked that Utah was in the game, and then I was shocked that Iowa State won the game.
Yeah, it seemed like just a lot of forced missed opportunities. Like, Rocco back to that pick six. That was not necessary. Like, there's so many missed opportunities that this Iowa State team had to go up big against this Utah team, which clearly didn't show that they really try to care in this game. It showed like obviously this team's like really injured, didn't really I know it was a senior night too for them, but still like didn't really like come out to play, it seemed like, but still somehow made a way to keep it close, and luckily they got the win.
Yeah, when you take a look at the box score, there should be no chance that this game was as tight and as stressful as it was.
Mm-hmm.
Just compare some things here. Iowa State 25 first downs, Utah 9. Total yards, Iowa State 405, Utah 224. Time of possession, Iowa State 35 minutes, Utah 24 minutes. But the final score is 31-28, and it took a trick play touchdown in the last seconds to get it done, and a missed field goal in the final moments.
That's true. Yeah.
And that's just it's a cause of just way too many unforced mistakes, just very sloppy play.
Yeah. It's not every day you see a team win that had a pick six, a muffed punt that was recovered, and making the missed field goal. I believe Codenrarty missed a field goal too. But yeah, just a weird game. Again, Becht himself, I thought, didn't play to the best of his ability. Only 20 for 38 passing, but I mean, when you throw the ball like that a lot, it's hard to complete passes. But once again, he put the team on his back. He had that error with the pick six, but brought everyone back, led the charge, and they win the game.
Yeah, and that's what you kind of expect from your leader at quarterback. You kind of expect him to bounce back from their mistakes and then end up leading them to win. But, the way this ended was kind of funny to me because, had to come down to Taylor Mauser's scheming mind to kind of trick Utah into getting a first down on a crucial play, and, got Carson Hansen his first pass, I think, of the season and ended up completing it to, I think it was Gabe Burkle in this one. So
it was, yep.
Yeah, it was a little fun trickery right there to kind of end off this weird game. A little high tense too, because didn't expect it to be this close.
Mm-hmm.
And that just feels like the game that Iowa State would lose, in a regular year. You outplay their opponent they outplayed them in every facet of the game besides dumb mistakes. And that's usually, I feel like that's what makes this team a little different, That's a game that they'd usually lose, but still, despite all the mistakes, falling down in the fourth quarter, they came back and got the job done because they were the better team, and they deserved to win that game.
Yeah. It's tough to win on the road, especially in the Big 12. But I think with everything that was riding on that game of Iowa State still fighting to make it into the Big 12 championship, which ended up happening, I think that everything that kind of went into this game worked, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It was a weird game. There were times where they should have probably lost, but they won. And in years past, we've had one-possession games where Iowa State's on the wrong side of it. But this year in one-possession games, Iowa State's 4-1. So obviously something's working with these one-possession games. They're finding ways to win, and it's been fun, exciting, stressful to watch.
Yeah, I think you perfectly summed it up right there. Fun and exciting, but also stressful as hell because, we think we'd try and cruise to more of these wins and not have to maintain it to be one-score games, and hopefully that's not the case in Arlington this coming Saturday. But They still found a way regardless. I think the only other one was the Texas Tech game where lost by 1 point because of that late touchdown by Brooks, and then couldn't drive down the field to score a potential game-winning field goal. But nonetheless, 4-1 and 1-score possessions, take that any day over like a 0-5 record or worse.
Yep.
That's the type of team they are. Games are going to be close. You say you hope it doesn't happen in Arlington. I can guarantee it's going to be a close game, and
probably
it's going to come down to the final 5 minutes. And Iowa State's been the better team in those final 5 minutes more than not. Besides the Texas Tech game, honestly. But yeah, it's going to. If you don't think it's going to be stressful, I think you're wrong.
Well, talking about stressful, how about that last game against Kansas State? That one again was decided in the final 5 minutes, really the final 30 seconds it was. Iowa State wins that one 29-21 for yet another Farmageddon victory. One of the few head-to-heads that Iowa State has played a lot of times and has a winning record over the other team. So Iowa State stays winning in Farmageddon, it looks like.
Yeah, and this one is the most important because it's the first 10-win season in program history.
Yep.
In the 133 years this Iowa State program has been around, 10 wins has never been achieved, and it finally got achieved this past Saturday. And what better way could you do it knowing that later on you'd be booking your ticket to Arlington?
Yeah, you couldn't have drawn it up any better. For Iowa State and their fans. Despite maybe the weather, I guess you could have asked for maybe a little bit better weather,
true.
but
a little warmer.
Getting the final game with a chance to essentially punch your ticket. I know BYU had to take care of some things later, but BYU's a heavy favorite in that game. You could hopefully bank on them and win, which they did, but to be in the final game, win, and you're in against your biggest in-conference opponent, biggest in-conference rival, and to get the job done in that way was perfect.
Yeah, everything that went into that game, there were so many storylines heading into it. You've got a ranked matchup. You've got Iowa State fighting to get to the Big 12 championship. It's senior night. It's cold.
First 10-win season on the line.
Yeah, first 10-win season on the line. Campbell also broke the wins record this year. So, that's two big achievements that Iowa State's done this year. The wins record for Campbell, and they got the 10 wins. Now there's a shot to check off another thing that they've never done before, and that's win the Big 12 championship. But specifically, when you look at the game against Kansas State, it was the defense that won Iowa State this game, 100%. That first play of the game, that pitch that Avery Johnson has for Kansas State, it causes a turnover. Miles Purchase is there to pick it up. That really, I thought, kind of set the tone for the entire game of what Iowa State was going to do.
And that kind of set the tone for even what they did offensively because, we see Rocco Beck's passing numbers. It's needless to say, there's a lot of room for improvement. 13 for 35, only 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. And granted, I know it's really cold outside, so I probably didn't think it'd probably be the best conditions to try to throw a rock at one of your teammates. So, but nonetheless, they were able to luckily capitalize off those turnovers because you had the Avery Johnson fumble and Tayshaun James forced another one that Joey Peterson landed on it. Both those drives resulted in Iowa State touchdowns. I think they're both to Higgins and Nola. It was one of the two either way. But, yeah. Regardless, Rocco and the offense is able to find a way to be able to capitalize off those turnovers from the defense, and the safety just put a cherry on top later in the game.
I really like what we've seen from the defense the last two games. Bouncing back from that disastrous performance they had against Kansas. Against Utah scored 28, but there's the pick six, there's the muff punt that led directly to Utah points. So you can't put all those on that defense. And in this game, like you guys said, they played very good, very opportunistic. And I think that has a lot to do with the linebacker room getting a little healthier, getting Sadowski back to full strength, getting McLaughlin back in. Obviously you're still missing Bacon, who's been gone for the whole year, but just even getting those two guys to play consistent snaps, full games, I think that's helping out a lot to have those guys in the middle. We're still missing Verdon, which hurts. Hopefully he'll be back for the Big 12 title game. I don't know the word on him or not, but I think this defense is getting a little healthier, and it shows.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting, too, when you look at it. I like what you said about Iowa State kind of taking advantage of those opportunities because that's what they did. That's what they had to do to win this game because Iowa State was outgained in this game, passing and running the ball, but it was because Iowa State had a short field on a few of its scoring drives. So the offense didn't really have to move the ball a whole lot. When it needed to, it wasn't the best per se. I thought the best drive of the game for Iowa State was that final 2 minutes before halftime to drive down the field and score after the offense had been stagnant for a little bit with those short fields. Once they were able to get that score, I was like, okay, there's big chance now that Iowa State wins this football game.
Yeah, that was really, I feel like you said, the turning point for this. That's really just for the entire Iowa State team, and just to go into half, with that lead, and third quarter they got shut out, and Kansas State scored that touchdown. It kind of looked a little eerie, but then the defense once again stepped up. Able to get that field goal from Conradi, obviously, and then the safety was really just, like I said, the cherry on top. Forcing Avery Johnson into the end zone and throwing an intentional grounding because no one was near there was perfect. And John Hancock right there. We talked about the defense; been stepping up really well, and especially that play that's perfectly designed to work on the Cyclones' favor. And I know he's going to be making more good plays, especially for Scadaboo in that Sun Devils offense.
That safety was insane.
Oh yeah.
I mean, poor Avery Johnson. That's a terrible play. That's bad. You can't. Iowa State might have been gifted in that one a little bit, but he was under pressure all game. Iowa State, for really maybe kind of felt like the first time all season, was able to get back to the quarterback a little bit. That's kind of what you give up when you run that 3-man front defense a little bit. When you don't have a guy like Will McDonald up front, you maybe not as prone to get all that pressure. But in this game, they're giving Avery Johnson some trouble.
Yeah, Johnson wasn't great like Becht. He threw under 50%. He did have 220 yards and 3 touchdowns, though, so he found something, obviously. But
a couple shot plays.
Yeah, it wasn't enough, though, in the end. I thought that Kansas State's rushing attack was pretty solid. I thought that Iowa State did a good job of holding it in check, though. Only 144 yards on the ground. None of their players had over 100 yards rushing the football. DJ Giddens, their top guy that we had talked about before this game, 72 yards for him. So, I agree. I think the defense is stepping up when it needs to, and they're definitely going to need it to step up again with a guy like Scadaboo in Arizona State.
Yeah, and I was finding it especially surprised that they held – I think this might have been the first time that this defense has held one of the 1,000-yard rushers on 100 yards, because I think Taj Brooks, obviously R.J. Harvey, Devin Neal were all able to – Caleb Johnson, all able to reach over 100 yards. And then DJ Giddens, you see, we kind of expected more of the same from what we saw from them earlier, but they were able to stop him. And, they're really going to need that now this Saturday, especially in the biggest game of the season. And, I was just very surprised by their being able to try and stop their run game.
Yeah.
Speaking of run game, if Abu Sama, I think, might have played his best game of the season. And, 15 carries, 81 yards isn't too flashy of a stat line, but he ran the ball consistently. And it was nice to see him have that type of game in a big game, because, he's been kind of criticized this season. We've talked about it. He hasn't performed like we would like him to perform in. I think he played really good in that game.
Yeah, he ended up being the leading rusher, like you said, 15 carries, 81 yards, average of 5.4. He had that 33-yard run that was pretty good. I believe that one was on that 2-minute drill right before halftime. So, a good performance from him. Carson Hansen also ran the ball 13 times for 58 yards. We didn't really see a lot of Jalen Jackson in this game, though. 4 carries for 15 for him. His longest went for 11, so he was kind of held in check a bit.
He got blown up on one of his runs, and that seems to happen to him a lot.
It does.
Smaller guy.
Yeah. But as long as there's at least one running back that can get some traction going and get something going for this Iowa State offense, then they'll have no problems.
Yeah, even if you look at Jalen Jackson's past stat line for a while, I think it's been obviously the Baylor game he had 100 yards. He hasn't even reached 20 yards since the Baylor game. It's been that kind of a struggle for him, which I know Hansen has been probably the main back right now in a boost, starting to finally rise up from when he kind of underperformed in the beginning of the season. So, from what we saw from him, I'd like to see a little bit more, but then again, he's not seeing as much because of the rotation of the 3-man backs. And like we said, Brett, as long as one of those 3 work, or even 2 of them work, then that's all we need if it finds a way to win.
Yeah. Looking at the receiving numbers, though, Higgins and Knoll, again, we've been talking about them all season, about the duo that they are. Against Utah, it was Higgins who passed 1,000 yards. Against Kansas State, Jalen Knoll was able to do it. So I believe this is the first time in Iowa State history that we've had 2 wide receivers, or just pass catchers in general, that have both gotten over 1,000 yards in the same season.
And I believe they're the only team this season in the whole entire country with 2 receivers over 1,000 yards.
I think you're right on that, too.
Yeah, because I remember seeing it was 2 receivers over 900, 950. It was San Jose State or something, but, a bigger school now, and both of them were able to get to 1,000 yards. And remember last season, they were so close, both of them. I think Higgins 17 yards short, and then I don't remember how many Knowles was. I think it was within 200 for sure. So it was nice to see, especially with Knoll being here now in his 4th season, to finally reach that 1,000-yard mark, because I know he was able to play with guys like Xavier Hutchinson alongside him too. But it's finally nice for him, especially being honored on senior day as well, to get that 1,000-yard mark, just adding a cherry on top.
Yeah, there's a huge gap, though, to third place. Third place in receiving for Iowa State is Gabe Burkle, 17 catches for just 208 yards. So it's been the Higgins and Knoll show all season. It's worked. And, again, we've talked about it all year. Will there be a third guy who emerges? There really still hasn't been, I thought. Receiving-wise, it's been Carson Brown in the past couple weeks. It's started to come on a little bit.
He might be Iowa State's wide receiver 1 next year.
Yeah, that's what I'm a little worried about, because Higgins and Knoll have been the entire passing game this year. The tight ends have really been phased out. I know that they've dealt with injuries a lot. But even later in the season, we still haven't really seen a whole lot of them. When they do get the football, they do stuff with it. They can score. They can push the ball down the field. They make some crazy catches. I am a little surprised that we haven't seen a whole lot out of those guys this year, especially Burkle recently, just because he's been the tight end one because Bramer's been out.
Yeah, we even talk about the transfers, Eli Green and
Right.
Isaiah Austin, who's not caught a single pass this year.
Nope.
We'd expected more from those transfers. He was trying to make more of an impact on this team. Maybe they do next season because Higgins and Knoll are gone. But it's kind of just a surprise that they weren't able to make a bigger impact right away, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I just have the feeling that Iowa State's going to go into the transfer portal again this season.
They're going to have to.
they're going to have to. You feel like get a guy like Jaden Higgins from a smaller school, maybe, because I just don't see a true receiver 1 in this room right now. Maybe guys like Carson Brown can turn into that, but it's way too early to say that.
Right.
They're going to have to figure that out for sure.
Yeah, Rocco Becht has thrown over 3,000 passing yards, 20 passing touchdowns. Over 2,000 of those yards have been to Higgins and Knoll. 15 of those touchdowns have been to Higgins and Knoll. There have been 5 other guys who have caught 1 touchdown this year. So the gap is insane from those top 2 to everybody else. It's weird. It's weird. You feel like there could be maybe a third or a fourth guy in there, but there really hasn't been. There really hasn't needed to be. And I'm positive it'll stay that way for the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, it hasn't changed yet. It won't change for that big game, especially even if they do make it to the college football playoff or even the bowl game if they don't end up being Arizona State. Yeah, I just don't see it changing.
Well, there might be another team in the Big 12 championship game that's facing similar issues.
True.
Yeah, true. Which we'll get to a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, overall, though, I thought Iowa State, the defense, again, was the highlight of this game, just forcing those turnovers, especially the final 2 drives that Kansas State had, to get 2 turnover on downs to, 1, get the ball back, and 2, just to ice the game itself, win it, lock up the 10-win season, give yourself a shot to go to the Big 12 championship. The defense in this game, besides maybe the Houston game, I thought was the best all year in terms of a Big 12 opponent, forcing the turnovers, not making mistakes, and just buckling down right at the end.
Yeah, it looked just like that. And, obviously Houston wasn't the best of teams. Obviously shutting them out is an impressive feat, especially with a newer Big 12 team. But still, nonetheless, seeing this team really step up at the right time is just key and should be key throughout the rest of the season.
It only gets more difficult from here.
Yeah, it does. It does. The difficulty will definitely ramp up.
The pressure,
everything will. Arizona State's a solid team. We're going to get into them in a little bit, but
they're hot.
They are. They are the Sun Devils.
Mm-hmm.
So
Arizona's I'm sure it's pretty nice down there right now. Here, not so much.
I would like to be there right now.
I would like to be there as well.
Below freezing isn't really my favorite temperature, but oh well. It was fun though. The game, it was cold, but it was a good scene. The crowd was solid. From what I would say, it's still Thanksgiving break. The student section wasn't completely full, but it filled in throughout the game. And then everybody filled in on the field after the game too.
Oh, yeah. Perfect time to be on the field with 2. Obviously, the Big 12 championship game wasn't exactly known yet because BYU was still playing during that time. But, getting that 10-win season, that's surely a thing that will go down in, obviously, Iowa State history, be in the record books forever. And then, obviously, it was warranted that later on that they'd go on to make the Big 12 championship game. So it was kind of a double surprise. So
Yeah,
And BYU had me nervous for a little bit.
they did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were trying to lose that game
They were
for a while, but
that fourth down where what was it? Chris was like running straight backwards and then the fumble. Like I thought I heard circus music when I heard that, like, yeah, kind of thing. But yeah, just ended up
BYU
working
came
on our
through
favor.
though. They came through.
They did.
Thank you, BYU.
Thank you, BYU.
Thank you, BYU.
Well, then that leads us to Arlington, the Big 12 championship game. Iowa State, Arizona State. It's going to be Saturday on ABC, 11 a.m. New college football rankings came out. Arizona State clocks in at 15. Iowa State right behind at 16. So they're both a little on the outside right now. The winner of the Big 12 championship, if it's either of them right now, if everything is chalk, Arizona State's in there currently as the 12 seed based on how the whole rankings and seedings go for that. But this game's going to be good. I'm excited for it. Iowa State, second ever Big 12 championship appearance, going for that first title. Arizona State makes it in its first season in the Big 12, was projected last place in the preseason media poll. So there's a lot riding on this game for both teams. Arizona State, something to prove. Iowa State finally trying to make its own history and finish its own story and win that elusive Big 12 championship.
Yeah, what Kenny Dillingham's been able to do with the Sun Devil team in one season, joining another conference, we kind of expected, and it was understandable that they'd projected to finish last or bottom tier of Big 12 teams just because of the transfer way. And then, they're not really the most talented team on paper, but still they found a way with obviously Scadaboo leading the way and Jordan Tyson as a receiver, and Levitt's been playing pretty good at quarterback too. So, they just find a will. When there's a will, there's a way. And, Arizona State's been doing that with a 10-2 record and obviously being ranked right above Iowa State right now in terms of college football playoff rankings and just, I think, AP poll rankings as well. So,
Yep.
All the credit to them, and it should be a tough battle on Saturday.
You can just look at the numbers here, and it's whether you believe in betting odds or ESPN chance to win. ESPN gives Iowa State 55% chance to win. Vegas favors Arizona State. It's about as close as a matchup as you can get on paper, and both teams Arizona State was very under because obviously they struggled early in the season. They lost to Texas Tech. They lost to Cincinnati, but all they've done is win and win convincingly kind of recently. I guess maybe not convincingly, but they've won over good teams. Right. BYU, Kansas State dominated. Oklahoma State dominated Arizona. And it's just I never saw this coming. Even 3 weeks ago, Arizona State wasn't even in my mind really. Mm-hmm. But they just kept winning. And obviously Iowa State had also kind of fallen out of the picture after their two losses. And I feel kind of everyone was pointing towards BYU in Colorado a couple weeks ago. Yep. That's what everybody seemed to want. Mm-hmm. But it's not what you get.
Yep. The ratings would probably have been better had it been those two teams, but that's neither here nor there. It is Iowa State, Arizona State.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
I wouldn't either. This is going to be a really fun matchup, I think. It's two programs that I feel have had to rely on their toughness, their physicality, just because I don't really feel like they're kind of at that next level of these are premier college football programs. And that's what I love about the new Big 12. It's a really big league. You've taken out Oklahoma and Texas, so it really, again, heading into the season, it felt like it was wide open, and it was. Look who made it, the preseason 6 and the preseason 16. And I have no doubts that we're going to see this throughout the rest of however long this current Big 12 lasts.
It's going to be like this every year.
Yeah,
there was how many teams were still alive going into the final week?
8. Half of the league.
Maybe we won't have it that bad every year, but
right.
I think going into every year, there's probably going to be 4 teams vying for it every single season.
100%. I feel for BYU, though, to have a 10-win season and miss the Big 12 championship on a tiebreaker to a team that you didn't even play. So that's got to sting. I feel for them, but I'm happy for Iowa State.
Yeah, thank you for beating Houston when we really needed them to. But, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate their season ended off, especially with the way they'd started. They were perfect in every sense, and then all of a sudden the Kansas game happened. Kansas is already on a high, beating Iowa State, and then they went into their town and took them down. I guess they are the more experienced team, so it made sense for them to beat them, but just in the fashion they did is kind of just a little crazy to me and just kind of started their downfall a little bit and obviously resulted in no appearance in Arlington this year.
Yeah. Especially even they have that non-conference win against otherwise unbeaten SMU, who
Mhm.
ranks, I think, number 8,
Yep.
and is more than likely in the playoff. I mean,
A win and they're in.
a win and they're in, and they're like a really solid team with a bye if they win.
Yep.
And they beat that team, and I would be sick to my stomach stumbling down the stretch like that. But those are the breaks, and we couldn't thank them enough for it.
Yeah, yeah. It's also interesting when you look at these conference championship games. The realignment thing has
It's
shifted
shaking it up
everything
so much, yeah.
But in all of the Power 4 conferences and the American Athletic Conference, a new team in all those conferences has made the championship. You got Texas in the SEC, Arizona State in the Big 12, Oregon in the Big 10, SMU in the ACC. You've even got Army in the American Athletic, all with chances to make the college football playoff.
Yeah, it's an interesting format. The expanded college football playoff, you get a lot more teams vying for a spot, and then, of course, the SEC bias comes in with Alabama potentially trying to make a spot, which I still don't like.
They're ranked 11th.
They're
ranked
in
11th.
They're in right now.
I don't know. I mean, that's just my preference. I mean, I don't like the SEC, especially now with Texas and Oklahoma, and it just kind of adds on to that fuel to that fire of hatred. But, it's going to be interesting to see these conference games especially unfold, because I know Iowa State's game is, I think, the earliest on Saturday.
It is, along with the MAC.
The MAC, but that doesn't matter in terms of CFP.
Well, you know who made the MAC championship this year, though?
Who?
Ohio.
Good for
And
them.
Yeah.
Miami,
Ohio.
Ohio.
But Ohio specifically, because, remember what happened last year with Iowa State and Ohio. So
No Curtis Rourke, though. He went out to Indiana and look
Right.
what Indiana's
Right.
doing.
That
They're a good
honestly
MAC
wasn't
program.
it wasn't a bad not Utah. It wasn't a bad Ohio team that Iowa State lost to
No,
last year.
no.
Obviously, their quarterback was good. I mean, look what he's doing now at Indiana.
And
Another
the-
playoff team.
It was bad when it happened, but kind of looking back on it, it probably sparked something in the team to get to where they are now.
It was a wake-up call, that's for sure.
Right.
I wish
that,
they
one,
made
that one fan that heckled Campbell outside the stadium.
Yeah. Credit to that guy. Not really though, but
I wonder what he's doing right now. I wonder how he feels about Campbell in this moment.
right. It'd be interesting to find out. Yeah.
Someone interview him.
Looking at Arizona State's schedule and kind of the common opponents that they've had with Iowa State, Arizona State lost to Texas Tech like Iowa State, but they beat Kansas and they beat Utah. They lost to Cincinnati. They beat UCF and they beat Kansas State. So fairly similar. There's a couple that are different. When you look at the scores of the games, Iowa State has the edge on some of them. Arizona State has the edge on some others. You can kind of compare and contrast all you want, but when it really comes down to it, it's what do these teams have right now? How injured are they? What weapons do they have entering the game? And Arizona State is missing one of its biggest pieces right now heading to the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, Jordan Tyson, one of the few receivers in the Big 12 to reach 1,000 receiving yards, is out for this game. I think it was with the left arm injury. I think he sustained that in the game against Arizona, which is kind of tough to happen, especially before the postseason happens. You lose your best player in the passing game, and you kind of see this differential from Tyson to their next best pass catcher, which is somehow Cam Skadaboo, the running back with 468 yards. Compare that to 1,101. I couldn't even tell you the amount of drop-offs. It's literally falling off a cliff type of thing. It's insane the amount of, how much their game plan is going to have to change, just because I know they prefer to run first with Skadaboo and get those yards, but, losing a guy like Tyson is, gut-wrenching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about the Iowa State 2 wide receiver system. They've been running the 1 wide receiver system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's gotten them this far, but
Now they don't
what do you
have
do
him.
without that wide receiver?
Yeah.
What would Iowa State do without Noel and Higgins?
Right.
I mean, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about Iowa State with Carson Brown as the wide receiver 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking about Arizona State with Xavier, I don't even want to try to pronounce that loud, Guillory
Guillory. Yeah.
Guillory.
One of the
as
ones.
their wide receiver 1.
Their tight end, though, has 5 touchdown receptions, which is interesting. Even though it doesn't have a lot of yards, he still seems to be one of those guys who can still score, especially probably more in the red zone, just because of the amount of yards. But still, nonetheless, he's been more of a threat in the red zone, it seems like. But nonetheless, the main focus on this game will be on Skadaboo and trying to stop another running back yet again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really what it comes down to.
Right.
It's Skadaboo.
Yep. Limit him,
but-
you can win the game.
But that's Iowa State's Achilles heel,
Right.
stopping the
Running.
run.
Yep.
Look at the
And
past 2 games, though. I mean, they did it.
It's gotten better.
Yeah.
And I think, again, with those linebackers getting a healthy year, which isn't saying much, but stop Scadaboo, and I think Iowa State has a pretty good chance.
Well, you got to imagine that Iowa State's secondary has to be like frothing at the mouth to get after this receiving core that Arizona State has now. They know that the best weapon's gone. Iowa State's able to force turnovers. They get interceptions. I wouldn't be shocked if Arizona State's kind of baited into some of those poor throws. I mean, Sam Leavitt's a solid quarterback, 21 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. But this is probably the best secondary he's going to face all season.
Yeah,
Definitely
he
the best
did.
secondary.
Yeah.
He did. I mean, yeah. When we saw, it's kind of like what reminded me of Barron Moore, and he had a good touchdown interception ratio, and then he threw two picks against the Iowa State defense. So,
right.
He's going to be baited, especially as a freshman too. Like, to think that a freshman led them to this kind of moment is kind of insane. Which props to him. Obviously, he's able to lead this team on top of Scadaboo's abilities, but still, I feel like this is going to be one of those games where it's really going to show his abilities as a quarterback, because obviously you don't have your leading receiver anymore, which you still have your leading running back, but then again, who's going to be that next guy to step up in his absence, and that'll be a question mark come Saturday.
They don't have a single wide receiver that'll be on the field on Saturday with over 20 receptions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their wide receiver 2 going into the game has less receptions than their backup running back.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that gives them an advantage, though. They can spread the ball around. Because, if you take Tyson out of the equation, obviously, because that's what's going to happen, Leavitt has spread the ball around to everybody. Scadaboo's the leading receiver after Tyson. You've got a tight end there behind him. You've got another running back in Kyson Brown who has 10 catches. One of those was a touchdown. So maybe it could be like a blessing in disguise, I guess you could say. Obviously Tyson was the guy that Iowa State was going to have to focus on. Now there's a group of guys that have caught some passes. We don't know who's going to jump out of those guys, of who's going to lead them on Saturday.
Yeah, because it could honestly be really any of them. It's just kind of like a wild card. You think it'd be Guillory, just from his stats and what has looked like thus far. But, it could be one of those guys this day just all of a sudden breaks out in the biggest moments, and it'll be on Iowa State's secondary to kind of halt that from happening and only focus Arizona State to try and run the ball with either Scadaboo or Sam Leavitt to try and scramble out, which, 90 carries for only 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. We've seen better from these quarterbacks to try and run, so it's not too bad. But then again, where the ball is going.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like on paper Iowa State might match up a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Again, this feels like we're just talking about the same game over and over this season. This team has a good running back. Iowa State's not the best against the run. They were better against Kansas State for sure. Arizona State throws the ball fairly well, but Iowa State's secondary is still very good. You've got the 2 pass catchers in Higgins and Knoll who are going to be those guys for Iowa State. One of the running backs is going to be the main running back. It feels like chalk to me once again.
Probably with just maybe a little bit. I think Kenny Dillingham's a really good coach, and maybe that's where Arizona State has the advantage over some of these teams that Iowa State has played. It's kind of like the same story every single game. We write these previews and stuff, and it feels like I'm writing the same thing a lot of the time.
Yeah, watch out for the running back.
Stop the running back, force the quarterback to throw, and Iowa State should be fine.
Yep.
And most of the time, that's how it's worked out. If they get to you saw it last week. Avery Johnson had to drop back and throw, and it was lights out. They couldn't move the ball. So, and I think that's going to be the story again. I think Leavitt's a pretty decent quarterback. Maybe he'll have a little bit more success. But when you lose Tyson, what happens? Right. I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of Arizona State football. I haven't watched. Especially even if I did watch, you wouldn't see their other receivers very much because they don't get the ball. So they're going to get their opportunity. They're definitely going to want to make the most of it on the biggest stage, but. Just stop the run.
Yeah, that's straight, clear cut. Obviously, stop the run. But then again, if we're kind of straying away from talking more about the defense, this game will obviously rely upon, and it seems kind of common too about Rocco Becht. Last 2 games, hasn't looked the best, and they still find a way to win because of the defense and the other playmakers on this team. And once again, we're going to need Rocco Becht to play his style of ball and not make as many mistakes as he did, because you saw against that Kansas State game. It was like couple of those plays, could have ended up back in 6 points for Kansas State in that game. We would have lost, and we wouldn't even be talking about the Big 12 championship game right now. We'd be talking about what happened, what could have happened, kind of those things. And, Yeah, it's really going to be on his shoulders. He's got the playmakers. I decided to help him there. You just got to be more consistent with his throws and have better awareness of where he's trying to throw the ball.
This is such a monumentous game for both of these quarterbacks. To be in this position, for Levitt to be a freshman, for Rocco Becht to kind of follow in the footsteps of Brock Purdy, who led Iowa State to its first Big 12 championship in the 2020 season. I feel like Rocco and Brock are fairly comparable when it comes to like their ability to make winning plays, their ability to throw the ball well, their ability to use their legs. But when it comes down to it, personally, if I had to pick one of them to lead like a game-winning drive or trust with the football in the moment to win the football game, I might choose Rocco Becht because he doesn't really seem to fold under the pressure a whole lot. When he makes mistakes, he rights them in the same game. Look at the UCF game. Look at the Utah game. Iowa State was down, or close to being down, I guess, but they had to come back after mistakes he had. He righted the ship. I feel like the moment is not going to get too big for Rocco Becht in this game.
No, yeah.
I think he's got it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you talk about those games, like what he did, like mainly projecting the pass game, he made up with it from his legs, especially the UCF game, ran a lot, especially after missing a lot of his throws, and ended up working out, scouting those last two scores, the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. So, hopefully we don't have to rely upon that because you want to be able to have a consistent pass game. You don't have to rely on the run as much from the quarterback, especially like you want the running backs to do their job. But, still, like we should be able to get in front of Arizona State, I feel like, because, I know defensively they haven't looked the greatest, I'd say. Like, in terms of defense, they're kind of a solid defense, but they're not really, like, in terms of, like, scaring me in terms of, like, that's kind of like we're going to be – because I know Kansas State was, like, leading in rushing defense, and look what we did rushing-wise against them. So, granted, it was freezing. So
it almost seems like sometimes that Rocco Becht almost needs, like, a disastrous play to wake up a little bit. It seems like he seems like he plays better after he makes like a boneheaded play, kind of. Like against Utah, he throws the pick six and then leads a game-winning drive later in the game. Same thing happens against UCF. He threw two pretty much.
Yep.
Went down and had the drive of like his life to save that game. Things don't spiral for him. He bounces back incredibly well. And with a lot of college quarterbacks, you make a couple big mistakes and you're like, well, this game's over. I suck. But he doesn't have that mentality. And then there's one other part about this game that I really want to touch on because I think it might be very important.
Okay.
Arizona State's kicking game is bad.
Bad? How bad?
Oh, yeah.
Bad.
How bad?
Earlier in the season, I don't know if this might ring a bell, Kenny Dillingham got to his press conference and said, we're holding open tryouts because our kickers cannot make kicks. And that really, it hasn't gotten better.
No.
They've been lucky that they really haven't had to. They've scored a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, all you need is extra points, which is easy already for college kickers to make. But yeah.
And if it's a close game like we think it's going to be, Arizona State might not want to take a field goal. They're going to be very prone probably to going for it on fourth down. And like, let's say it's like 4th and 4 and be like a 40-yard field goal. I almost guarantee they're going to go for that instead of trying to kick that field goal.
Yeah.
Because it's not gotten better since that press conference. I don't think he found someone off the campus to kick.
Aggression is probably going to be what wins or loses this game. If there is aggressive play calling, like you're saying, which I wouldn't be shocked if there is, that's going to be where the game's decided. Can you convert on those big moments? Can you convert those third downs, those fourth downs? Can you battle back if you do make a mistake? That's going to be a big part of it, too, is limiting mistakes for Iowa State. Look at the last time they were in the Big 12 championship game. Early on, there's that targeting call, which probably honestly shouldn't have been called, but it happened. That's a mistake. And it felt like that whole game, Iowa State was down by like a touchdown or two the entire time. They were kind of fighting to come back, and they just never could. This Iowa State team, I feel like if they are in a position like that, they can. They've proven it before.
Yeah, it's kind of the way you battle from adversity because I know obviously that targeting call was very unfortunate. I don't think it should have been called either, but like, you can't expect everything to go perfectly for you.
Right.
You had to find ways to like, some calls may go against you. You just got to find ways to kind of bounce back from it. And, I feel like this Iowa State team is more disciplined than before. So, and I feel like this shouldn't have to happen. Hopefully not for another like call, as big of a call as like a targeting call would be. But yeah, shouldn't worry about this team.
I feel like this game is the culmination of Matt Campbell and his staff of their 9 seasons of being here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like anything less of winning this game is going to feel like a massive disappointment, honestly, because they've been here before. They know what went wrong. They know what they had to fix. They've got another opportunity. The fans are going to be there this time because last time it was COVID.
Yeah, nobody's there.
Stadium was like, third of the way full or something.
Oh, yeah.
The fans will show out. Like, this is the moment that Iowa State fans have waited for, to be in a full stadium with a shot to win the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
I don't think in years past they thought that a playoff spot would be available because it hasn't before this year.
Yeah,
but
I doubt it.
That's there
been.
too.
Yeah, they would have been even if it was still stuck with the 4-team playoff because we'd still be talking about Big Ten SEC teams. Like nobody else would be able to get in. Iowa State would have to be undefeated for that to potentially happen. But nonetheless, things have changed and now they got a chance to. Hopefully, if things go right, they can try and get a bye, which I don't think they will if they win because SMU and Boise State hold the 2 byes ahead of them, even though I don't think they should because look at the strength of schedule they play. It's kind of been whatever, but, we could hope for better things, I think. And, like you said, I feel like this would be a massive disappointment because I feel like the stars are aligning for this Iowa State team. Heading to Arlington, a lot of the fans are going to show up. I think the majority of them will be Iowa State fans compared to Arizona State fans, which – there's some Arizona State fans still, but nonetheless, that on top of Tyson being out, like that's like never expected that to happen. That's kind of like it's an unfortunate thing, but it's kind of a gift that Iowa State was given just because of the fact they don't have one less weapon to deal with on top of facing a freshman quarterback. It's a new team too, which I think presents its own challenges, of course. And I just think it's overall like the stars are aligning for like a potential win here and like officially solidifying Matt Campbell and Iowa State history like for this perfect season.
This is the year. You can't be like, oh well, we'll probably be back next year because it took a crazy tiebreaker to even get in this year. Yeah. One of the greatest seasons of all time. And we talk about how up and down this conference is going to be, how it's going to look so different year to year, and just with the era of college football where rosters can flip so fast, teams can fall and rise so fast. You can't just count. Even though Iowa State has a great culture built through it, and it's a pretty consistent program with retaining its players and not being like a turnstile team like maybe like a Colorado or something. You can't just count on that. And there's going to be a lot of returning talent next year, hopefully. Yeah. And you just
offense,
can't. You can't count on that because this conference is going to be crazy, and a couple teams, random teams, West Virginia beats like Texas Tech. And things flip maybe, just with the tiebreaker standings. You can't count on that every year. So this is the year you got to do it. It's a team. It's a toss-up game, and you got to win that toss-up because you might never get the opportunity.
Yeah, with all the seniors on the team too, you got to capitalize for them too because you're not going to have Higgins or Knoll, and the receivers too are going to be. It's going to be a question mark heading into the next season. So I feel like it's just for the seniors, all they've been through, they got to like win this one for sure.
It's really do or die. I feel like.
Yeah.
Now or never.
Yep.
Got to do it. Real quick, before we end, I want your score prediction, and I want what uniform you want the team to wear.
I think the Scripps Cyclones will stay. They've been doing it for the past couple of games. They're going to stick with it. I doubt we're going to see it in the red, though, and we are the away team, so I feel like Arizona State might go with their normal burgundy or whatever it is, their red. So I think we probably could go with the all whites because 2020 we went with the all blacks. Let's go with the all whites with the red and gold script. I don't think we'd do all like white and black because I hope not at least. But I hope all whites like we saw. I think it was a Utah game, right? Yeah, the all whites. I think that'd be just right for this team to go into Arlington with those uniforms. And then score prediction spread right now on ESPN Bet is -2. It opened up at -1.5. I mean, this kind of reminds me of the Kansas State game just because of Arizona State is right behind Kansas State in rushing defense, but passing defense, they're kind of like in the middle. But I expect Iowa State to abuse that Arizona State secondary, so I'll probably stay around. And I expect Scatterboo to find the end zone and get over 100 yards, so because he can only limit him so much. Give me, and this is initial, we'll have the other ones obviously out on Thursday. 27-17 Clones.
Confident.
Took me a while to get there.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. I think we are going to probably wear the all-white scripts. I just feel like the scripts are definitely in. I like them.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, of course.
I mean,
Throwback.
maybe you could throw in different color. We're never gonna see the yellow pants this year.
Unfortunately, no.
I wish we would have.
After being teased.
But yeah, I don't think we'll see those this year at this
Nah.
point. Maybe during a playoff game.
True.
Probably not. Still though, I think
No.
we are gonna rock the all white scripts we saw them use against Utah. And I think for my score prediction, I'm gonna also predict an Iowa State Big 12 title win. And I think I'll go Iowa State 28, Arizona State 24.
Okay.
Closer. Okay.
So before you guys had your uniform picks, I was thinking the same thing. The Utah look.
What a coincidence.
I know
Pick
all
something
three of us. I was going to. I just wanted to bring that up. If that's what I thought.
Mhm.
If they had to have another uniform that I thought they would end up wearing, I feel like we're gonna see the look that they've worn more than any look this season. Red helmet, white jersey, white pants. Like I feel like it's just
Classic
too basic.
I-State logo.
Right.
Not the
Yeah.
block logo.
I'm gonna pick that one for Iowa State,
Okay.
just because people are kind of annoyed by it.
Watch this. I swear, if they run out in all white and like black script or black, if it's white and black, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be
be
happy.
happy.
Caden will crash out.
I will. I can't stand it. I mean, it's
I'll
cool.
crash out,
Maybe
too.
once a year you can rock that.
Once
we
they
win.
brought
They abuse that color scheme,
I agree.
and I don't
Once-
like it.
Once they
It's
brought the
so
script
boring.
in, it was nice, but without it, with the block lettering, it's
Yeah.
just bleh.
If we win, we win, and I don't care about what uniform they wear as long as they win.
Right.
As long
Black
as they win, I
uniform
guess.
is 0-1 in the Big 12 championship game, though. So
Yeah.
don't wear that.
And they
No.
probably won't have the opportunity. I'm sure Arizona State will choose to wear their colors,
Oh, yeah.
not white.
I would like Arizona State to wear maroon or burgundy, whatever, jerseys and pants with a yellow helmet.
With the classic like Arizona State like Sundown. I like
stuff-
that
I
one.
want the
Pitchfork.
trident.
You want
Yeah,
the
the-
trident?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Who
that'd be
knows?
cool.
They'll throw out crazy stuff. Who
Oh, yeah.
knows what they'll
Like
wear?
a chrome yellow helmet or something.
They're not quite
That'd be
Oregon,
crazy.
but they do.
They try.
They have a lot
Yeah.
of. They
They
have a lot of
try.
combinations.
Yeah.
And I like most of their combinations. I think they're all really good.
Me too.
I like
Yeah.
their
It'll
unis.
probably be yellow helmet, red jersey, yellow pants, like you said. Yeah.
No, I said maroon pants.
Oh, maroon pants.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess.
Like white, maroon, or not white, yellow, maroon.
Oh, they could. Yeah. I mean, they can make. I think they've kind of mixed it up all season with that kind
Yeah.
of uniform scheme. But yeah, I agree. What do you think, though?
As far as a score goes, though,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stick with you guys. I've kind of been saying it. I feel like the moment's not going to get to them. They know what they did in the past. They should know how to fix those mistakes for this time. I am going to take Iowa State to win the Big 12 championship game, and I'm going to take them 31-27 over Arizona State. A little closer, but still it's a win, and a spot in the playoff will happen.
I was a little bit more confident than you guys. Both of you guys had 4-point wins, but nonetheless, I'll take a win as a win. But yeah, I do expect Arizona State to kind of keep it close, and hopefully Iowa State learns from their lessons 4 years ago and applies it to this game on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see a way this isn't a stressful game. I can't
Oh, yeah,
imagine a
100%.
10-point win. I'm
There's-
sorry.
There's gonna be
I
some
hope it
crazy-
happens, but I just.
Yeah. It's only stopping one guy and hoping the offense is like normal as usual. That's it. That's all I can say.
Yep. Final thoughts.
Stop Cam Scatabo.
Yeah.
Scataboo. Is it Scataboo?
Scataboo.
Scattaboo.
Boo.
Win. What?
Scataboo.
Scattaboo.
Yeah.
This isn't Halloween anymore.
Stop Cam Scattaboo.
Ah,
I get it now.
Took you long enough.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Stop him, and you win the game, I think.
because no more Tyson. So
Yep. As far as Iowa State goes, just limit mistakes.
Yep.
Don't turn the ball over. They'll be fine.
Rocco, no dumb plays.
Yep.
yeah.
Well, I guess that'll do it from us. Thanks, everybody, for watching once again. Sports Weekly Podcast, Iowa State Daily. Pavle and I will be at the Big 12 Championship game. Caden, unfortunately, cannot go. But we know that he'll be paying attention. He'll be watching.
I'll be locked in.
Hell
Don't worry
yeah.
about that.
We hope to see a lot of you guys there, too. It'd be cool to, meet some of you guys.
Yeah. Travel down, please.
Yeah. If you can, if you're able, go to the game.
Mhm.
It's not every year that Iowa State's in the Big 12 Championship. Only the second time it's happened. First time that fans can really go to the game and experience it. So take full advantage if you can.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know the 12-hour drive looks daunting, but if you can afford the plane ticket, please go ahead and do that. Save a lot of travel time just getting to
Yep.
Texas. And, it's going to be a good time regardless. A lot of Cyclone fans will already be there. And, if you guys were able to go, then adds on to that spirit.
Yep. There's also a charter bus. Windstar is going to bus some people down to the game too for those unwilling to drive. I think it's pretty cool of them to do that.
And for the students too.
Yeah. Yep. But that's it from us. Big 12 championship. Iowa State, Arizona State, Saturday, 11 o'clock, ABC. If you are going to the game, drive safe, wear your seatbelt, drink water, and we will see you after the Big 12 championship.